Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a strange paradox. In a world that's more connected than ever, why do so many of us feel like no one is actually listening? So, let me just start by asking you this, and I want you to really think about it. When was the last time someone, anyone, truly, deeply listened to you? And I mean really listened. They weren't just nodding along, waiting for their chance to jump in. They weren't trying to fix your problem with advice you never asked for. They were just present. They were with you. Well, that feeling, that sense of not being heard, it's so common now that the material we're looking at today actually gives it a name, the era of monologues. Let's get into why we feel so unheard in this super connected world. And this isn't just a hunch, it's been measured. A huge global study by Ipsos found that 54% of adults feel like no one in their life truly knows them. Think about that for a second. That is more than half of us walking around feeling like strangers. And this feeling hits every single generation. For folks in their 20s, it's been described as this feeling of just screaming into the void on social media. You're putting it all out there, but you're not getting any real human connection back. Then for the 30-somethings, it's that classic rushed, "How are you?" "Fine." We all do it, right? It's almost automatic because we know deep down that nobody really has the time or the mental energy for the real answer. And for the 50 and up generation, it can be a bit quieter, a bit lonelier. It's that moment in the evening when a memory pops into your head. A story you're just dying to tell, but there's no one around to share it with. That quick 2-minute check-in call once a week just doesn't cut it. So what is going on here? Did we all just become terrible, selfish people overnight? Well, the source material argues that no, that's not it. The root cause is something way, way bigger than any one of us. We're living in what's called the attention economy. It's this massive system that has turned your focus, your attention, into a product. It's a resource that's being mined. The apps on your phone, the feeds you scroll, they are all powered by algorithms literally designed to grab and hold on to your attention for as long as possible. And just look at the choice our brains are facing. On one hand, you have a real conversation, which takes a ton of mental energy. You have to focus, empathize, and process. On the other hand, you have scrolling, which gives your brain a little jolt of pleasure, a tiny dopamine hit every few seconds. Our brains have basically been retrained to want the quick fix, not the deep work. So, the end result of this constant fight for our attention, we're all just burnt out. It's not that we don't want to listen to our friends and family. It's that at the end of the day, after our attention has been pulled in a million different directions, we are so mentally exhausted that we have absolutely nothing left to give. Okay, so if our attention is completely drained, what's the real casualty here? What did we lose in the process? And how on earth do we start to rebuild it? This gets us to the very architecture of what makes a real conversation work. Our first reaction as a society was to try and buy a solution. We basically turned listening into a professional service you can pay for. But that creates a real disconnect. Most of us don't need a clinical diagnosis. We just have this incredibly basic human need to be seen and heard by someone who gets us. And that's not really something you can schedule in a 50-minute session. So what's the missing ingredient? According to the source, it all boils down to one simple, powerful word: context. You see, real connection can't happen if every single conversation you have with someone starts from scratch. If you have to spend the first 10 minutes reminding them of the key players and the backstory of your life every time you talk, well, that's not a conversation. That's an interrogation. This is what we're all craving. This is what a conversation with real context feels like. It's when someone remembers your story. They can connect what you're feeling today with what you were going through last month. They just listen without jumping in to judge. They are, in a sense, holding the thread of your life right alongside you. Okay, so this brings us to a really fascinating final section. The source material doesn't just diagnose the problem, it actually imagines a new kind of model for communication, one that's built around a listener that can actually remember. So the big idea here is this. If the fundamental way we communicate with each other is broken, if the architecture itself is flawed, then maybe we don't need to just try harder. Maybe we need a completely new kind of tool that plays by a different set of rules. Imagine a new kind of conversational architecture. Now, this is key. It's not a doctor. It's not a therapist. It's simply an attentive listener. And its superpower is something called a memory continuum. It's designed to remember the names, the stories, the worries you shared last time. Its only job is to create a totally safe, non-judgmental space where a real conversation can happen. It's not treatment. It's just conversation. And that leads us to the big, provocative question I want to leave you with. As we design these incredible new tools to help with our loneliness, we have to ask ourselves something pretty profound. If we start to outsource the fundamental human act of listening, who are we becoming?